All right. Welcome everybody. It's great to be here with you today. My name is Taylor Jaffe. I'm Catskill Mountainkeeper's program manager. And Catskill Mountainkeeper anchors the ReThink Route 17 Alliance. We're really excited today for our virtual town hall. Really excited that you're all here. We're excited to talk about our new report, Invest in Our Communities, Not a Wider Highway. So today in our hour together, we are going to talk about a brief recap of the Route 17 project, talk about this new report, our vision for the region, as well as a handful of possible projects that we have come up with, and then also share how you can take action. And at the end, we are also going to take action today. So really got a lot to do in the next hour and really appreciate everyone for joining us. As we go through, if you do have questions, please feel free to use the chat. We've got some folks from the Alliance monitoring who can answer questions, or if it seems like something needs to be addressed on the spot, we can make sure that we do that too. All right. So let's dive in. The Route 17 project. What is this? What is a quick snapshot of this project? Over here on the right, you can see a map from the Department of Transportation. So Route 17 is kind of one of our main corridors for this region, for the Hudson Valley region. And right now there is a proposal to widen this highway. Right now it is a 4-lane highway in most places. The Department of Transportation is proposing a highway expansion. So the project area is in both Orange County and Sullivan County. This project has kind of been in the ether for quite some time now. Initially, we were looking at a 45-mile project, right? So all the way out to exit 103, where this orange ends in Sullivan County. Since our advocacy, the project has been scaled back. It is now ending in the Wurtsboro-Mamakating area, and about 20 miles are proposed for highway expansion. Certainly better than the full 45. However, we want to see highway expansion completely off the table. This project, converting Route 17 to I-86, is part of a wider effort. So the entire Route 17 corridor has been looked at by Congress in 1988, and Congress passed a law saying that we are going to convert Route 17 to I-86. Because this is part of a federal law, there is a National Environmental Policy Act review for this project, or a NEPA review. So the Department of Transportation in New York State, or NYSDOT, as I might refer to them tonight, is really the lead agency, but the Federal Highway Administration is also a lead agency on this project. So, we're talking about the conversion to I-86. One clear thing that we want to get across is that highway expansion is not needed for interstate designation. So we can get that interstate designation without adding capacity and without adding lanes to Route 17. So this NEPA process, let's talk about it a little bit. And to be clear, many projects have a NEPA process. It's really just because it's federal and state. There are certainly bad highway projects that have gone through a NEPA process and still become bad projects that burden communities. This isn't necessarily the place for our advocacy to win, but it is an important place for us to be advocating. And really, we can look at this timeline to get a sense that right now is a really key moment. So this NEPA timeline is 2 years. It kicked off in the spring of 2024. Right now, the Department of Transportation is developing a draft environmental impact statement. That's where they kind of look at the concepts that they've proposed and say, here are the possible environmental impacts for each concept. They are expected to release a draft environmental impact statement in the winter of 2025 through 2026. And then by the spring of 2026, there should be a final environmental impact statement and record of decision. So in the initial NEPA timeline, for anyone who's been following along or who joined us earlier in the spring for a different town hall, We were initially looking at a draft environmental impact statement around this time in the early fall, late summer. That has been pushed back, and that gives us a great opportunity to really get our point of view, get our advocacy, get this new report in front of our legislators and in front of our elected officials. We need to be changing the narrative now ahead of this draft environmental impact statement so that way our communities know what is possible, what's at stake, and what are the opportunities. So we've talked a little bit about proposed concepts. I'm not going to go too in depth here, but just to give folks a sense of what is going on. There's a no-build alternative that is pretty unlikely for the Department of Transportation to suggest. There's build alternative A, which keeps the main line as 2 lanes on either side and has some mobility and access improvements, including auxiliary lanes and collector distributor roadways. A little bit of this is jargon. There will be a picture in a second. Build alternative B, this is what we're really looking at. This includes a general third use lane from exit 120 in Middletown all the way to I-87 in Harriman. So what does this mean for our communities, and what does this actually look like in process? When we've got a general use third lane, that is a 6-lane highway that we're looking at. That is a super highway through our region. And when we're looking at the collector distributor roads as well, we are looking at up to 10 travel lanes. Like a car could be on every lane, and then we would have 10 lanes across in some sections. So this is what's at stake, and this is why we want to ensure that we are not adding capacity with this project. So, what's at stake for our communities? It's not just about these impacts on the roadway, but we're talking about traffic, right? The prevailing science demonstrates that highway widenings will induce demand. If you build it, they will come. If we build more road, they will drive on it. And so even though the Department of Transportation is saying that drivers might save 3 to 6 minutes after we spend $1.4 billion, which personally I think is certainly a waste of our state funding and our tax dollars, over time, that modicum of time saving is going to be erased, and we will be sitting in longer traffic during peak periods. With more cars on the road, with increased traffic, we're also going to have worsened air pollution in our communities. This will mean that there's air pollution directly in disadvantaged communities. So the corridor is surrounded by a lot of minority communities, a lot of low-income communities, and by creating more pollution in these communities, we are continuing to burden them. And some of those consequences could mean worse health outcomes, higher rates of asthma, a whole host of burdens that we don't want to see in our communities. This is also a waste of taxpayer dollars. 60% of Hudson Valley roadways are currently in poor condition, and it's important that we fix the infrastructure we have, not adding more. If we have a wider road also, it is going to take more money to maintain it, right? We are not maintaining the roads that we already have, and how are we going to maintain more miles? This is an all hands on deck moment. I mentioned that we have some time before we get a draft environmental impact statement, but folks might have seen in the news that there is a new study in air quotes by the 17 Forward 86 Coalition. Just to read this title, new report reinforces urgent need for Route 17 enhancement in the Hudson Valley. This study is really done by self-serving interests, right? So Collier's Engineering and Design, ELEC 825, really corporate interests are backing this study and are backing 17 Forward 86. So this is not aligned with our community's vision because this is really a self-serving interest, right? Asphalt lobbyists, construction lobbyists, they stand to make financial profit if there is more paving, more highway done in our region, and they stand to benefit from extracting from our region as well. So, with this new study coming out, we have to assume that forces with more financial resources are mobilizing. So while we may not be able to match financially what, big lobbying firms have, we've got to match that with people power. So we need everyone to be out advocating on behalf of our communities, really sharing our vision for what is possible for our region, what our communities need, and what we deserve. And there's huge opportunities as well. We have an opportunity to connect our communities. Investing in multimodal transportation can help connect communities that are currently disconnected, and provide folks more options to get around with or without a car. We can support economic growth, right? Investments in the region rather than just, one section of highway can ensure that visitors come and stay instead of just passing through. We also have an opportunity to, create infrastructure and transportation that aligns with the New York State Climate Act. That we have a mandate in New York State to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And if we're able to be creative and think of how we can move people efficiently, we also have a real opportunity to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. So we've kind of looked a little bit at this Route 17 project. Where are we right now in the timeline? What's at stake? What are the opportunities? But how does this connect to the $1.4 billion? And how are we going to get a slice of that money? Is it possible? And I am going to quickly turn it over to my colleague, David Bragdon.
Oh, well, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Taylor. Now, here's a name that you probably didn't expect to hear tonight, Richard Nixon. That's right. Richard Nixon was the president who signed the federal law in the early 1970s that allows state governments to transfer money from the highway fund, or what used to be the highway fund. They can transfer it to transit or to other needs. State governments can also pass money through to towns, villages, counties, or other units of local government. Now, we know from our experience with NYSDOT that they do a lot of misrepresentation or misinformation or disinformation. So one of the things they will probably say about our report, oh no, it's not possible. Well, it actually is possible. It's federal law since Richard Nixon signed it. They will also say, well, this is NYSDOT money. Well, it's not actually NYSDOT money. It's your money and my money. It's tax money. And we need to speak up and make sure that it gets used for the types of things that we want by the governments that are closest to us at the village, town, and county level, so that we get value for this 1.4 billion instead of having it be thrown away. Back to you, Taylor.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Yeah, this is our money, right? Every single town, every single village has a backlog of needs. And often, folks are working with a minimal budget. The state's saying, I don't have money. Meanwhile, they have 1.4 billion for a highway expansion that we don't need. So it's time for us to advocate for the transfer of this funding to benefit our communities, which is where this alternate vision report comes in. So let's talk about our vision for the region. What is the ReThink Route 17 Alliance's vision? And this is all in our report, which I'm holding here, and also online. But let's jump in. We want safe roadways for all people. We want to prevent traffic fatalities, safer roadways for all users, including pedestrians, right? No matter how you get around, you should have a safe way to get to your destination and home. We also want to address the highest crash locations by prioritizing investments at intersections with the highest crash rates. And the highest crash rate intersections are not on Route 17. Those are on local roads. So we want to make sure we're prioritizing safety by thinking regionally instead of just about this Route 17 corridor. We want to fix the potholes and existing roads first, right? I mentioned earlier, over 60% of Hudson Valley roads are in poor condition. So we need to prioritize investments in our existing infrastructure. Drivers, cyclists, buses, you name it. We all need safe working roads to get around. This also presents an opportunity. We can have work for local unions, right? Local infrastructure projects equals work for local unions. When we have these kind of big projects, oftentimes, outside labor will be brought in. They kind of extract their profits from our region and then they go out, leaving us with kind of, low paying automated jobs instead of long-term, you know, life and family sustaining jobs. We want vibrant downtowns. We have a real opportunity if we think regionally about transportation to support small businesses. If we invest in local roads that can support small businesses, help our main streets thrive. We also can connect our communities. If we have increased transit investment, we can ensure that people are able to get around between towns, villages, and cities rather than bypassing them entirely. We want more transit service in the region, right? We want to give residents the choice. Whether you're driving, taking the bus, biking, or walking, everyone deserves a safe choice to get around every time. I live in Livingston Manor. Certainly, I know I will be driving oftentimes to get up to my farm. There's not going to be a bus that comes to get me up here, but I should have a choice to be able to get around on bus, for example, between Liberty and Monticello. And that should be a safe and a good choice. We also want to support non-drivers. So non-drivers are a smaller percent of our population, but they're still a part of our population that we need to be caring for and supporting. We can also be preparing right now for an aging population and support non-drivers with investments that enable them to access opportunities too. Everyone should be able to get around. This is about caring for our communities. We want to see more sidewalks, bikeways, and trails. We are in such an incredible region. The Catskill Park region is right here. We can play to the strengths of this region and bolster ecotourism to support job creation and resource protection at the same time. We can also improve public health. If there's more funding available for local projects, local municipalities will know where there are opportunities to increase active transportation, and this can help support healthy communities in our region. Finally, we want to modernize for intelligent signals, right? Demand management and intelligent transportation systems approach means investing in modern traffic signal technology at key intersections to improve safety and support a more efficient flow of traffic. This could be something as simple as the signage and just being able to update it. For example, when we had the total solar eclipse in the Adirondacks last year, simple signage made it so that way in this region, on the day of, there wasn't a huge backup of traffic because people had planned ahead, prepared, and driven at different times. So that's our vision. But what could we actually do with $1.4 billion? Well, in our new report, we've come up with 13 community-centered projects, and these total 400 million out of 1.4 billion. So this is 13 different projects. This list is certainly not exhaustive, right? This is just a sampling of what is possible with this funding. And it looks at the entire region rather than just sinking 1.4 billion into 30 miles of one road. So this part is certainly going to be a little bit reading heavy, but I really want to share with folks just what is possible for the region. And then we're going to open it up. So for 5 million, we could beautify 30 miles of Route 17 over the next 20 years with wildflower plantings. This might also have some positive benefits for our pollinator population. For 5 million, we could develop a regional transportation demand management program, working with major employers and destinations to incentivize transit and travel at non-peak times. We could cut emissions by doing this, reduce traffic congestion as well during peak times. For $600,000, we could fund the Orange County Roadway Safety Action Plan, which would prioritize approaches to achieving 0 fatalities on Orange County roadways and fund safety measures. For 10 million, we could purchase and install about 250 bus shelters in Orange, Ulster, and Sullivan counties. This would protect our transit users from rain, snow, sun, other weather while they're waiting. For 10 million, we can improve connectivity to transit on Route 17 in both Orange and Sullivan counties. This would enable more folks to get around. For 5 million, we could double the number of bus routes in Sullivan County, and this would provide hundreds of thousands of rides each year. For 20 million, we could address the most pressing safety issues on Route 17, where crash rates are highest due to unsafe merge movements. For 1 million, we could construct a pedestrian bridge across a stream in Ellenville. This would connect schools, parks, a grocery store, a community center, and neighborhoods. Right? This is when we think really locally, we can do a lot of good and for a fraction of the cost. For 100 million, we could fix and pave Route 17 and significantly repair roads in the region that are in poor condition right now. For 35 million, we could construct 15 miles of a continuous rail trail in Orange County that would connect Goshen to Campbell Hall to Montgomery and Walden, right? We're talking about connecting our communities and giving folks more ways to get around. For 20 million, we could significantly upgrade the intercity bus service in Orange County. So right now, folks in Newburgh need to take 3 different bus connections to get to Goshen, which is where the county legislature has their meetings, right? This is where the county seat is. So it's difficult for folks across the region, whether you're in Newburgh or Middletown, wherever you are, it's difficult for folks to get to places where they can actually speak to their legislators, and we have to improve that. For 140 million, we could complete the 57-mile O&W rail trail spanning from Port Jervis to Kingston. This is across our counties, along with an additional 50-mile extension in Sullivan County from Wurtsboro to Livingston Manor. For 45 million, we could provide sidewalks and intersection crossing improvements in 20 villages and hamlets in Orange and Sullivan counties, making it easier to get to local schools, businesses, and places of worship. So this certainly isn't an exhaustive list, but just thinking through what is possible, this is a whole host of benefits that we could provide to our communities if we think regionally about transportation, rather than sinking, this huge amount of money into one boondoggle. So I want to open it up now. How would you spend $1.4 billion? We really want to hear from folks, either in the chat or if you would like to come off mute, please raise your hand. We want to hear about what your community needs are, what is happening in your region. We want to hear from you. How would you spend $1.4 billion? So I'm going to pause really quickly. I will stop sharing and would love for folks to raise a hand or add some comments in the chat. Yeah, Melissa, I see a real life hand.
Oh, yes. Okay. So sound check. Is this horrible ambient music here in Starbucks?
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So can everybody in Starbucks, but I'll be quick. So Sustainable Hudson Valley has been working on a NYSERDA funded planning process around microtransit. It's they're called clean mobility grants, and it's a major commitment that New York State has made that we should be so aligning with. So looking at the practicalities and business models for bike share libraries and on-demand electric shuttles, and all those things have so improved in the last very few years. So we've just finished a mobility plan with Poughkeepsie, focusing on the north side, but for the whole city. That there's real political interest in. City of Kingston and SUNY New Paltz for the village and the campus have done them. There's a group working in Beacon and Newburgh around connecting across the bridge and Red Hook. So with these, the need is to support coordination, because things like a bike lending library, you've got 20 bikes here and 30 bikes there, run by amateurs or run by local government, it's not cost effective. But if you can bring together communities and make bike share fleets affordable at the level of like 1,000 bikes, like they do in major cities, it is game changing. And so that is a near term interest that Taylor and others know we are looking at when and how we might be able to convene a conference to really delve into that stuff. But it's something where New York is, has funding on the table for demonstrations, and it's crazy to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, that's really exciting. We want to be thinking about how micromobility fits into this plan, and with 1.4 billion on the table, I'm sure we could fund it. Others, feel free to raise a virtual hand. If you decide to come on camera, I can see your real life hand as well. Would love to hear from folks in the chat as well. How would you spend $1.4 billion? What projects do you know about in your community? What are your community's needs as well? Yeah, Jessica.
Hi, everybody. So I was just going through the town of Thompson's comprehensive plan. It was released very recently, like last week. And I've only made it through the first part, but it was interesting to me to read some of the statistics. One was about, first of all, they had a map of all the Move Sullivan bus routes. And they said there's room for improvement here. They showed where the loops are and the connections are, and it was very clear which areas were not being serviced. Another piece of the comprehensive plan talked about how there's a growing senior population in Sullivan County. It's far outpacing the younger generation, and there's a need for getting those seniors around. Right now, there's a senior shuttle that gets people from different facilities to shopping, but there's really not specific public transportation for them. Also, just there's so much talk about affordable housing and the need to bring in young families and provide, connections from where they can live to where they can work. And, I think, having transportation for them is important as well. So looking at these statistics in Sullivan County, I could see where the improvement can be. Yeah, so that's.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you for taking a look into that. Yeah, Sullivan County certainly has an aging population that we need to care for, as well as, newcomers to the region, right? We're seeing more folks moving up to the Hudson Valley, some of whom may not be drivers. And we want to make sure we can support their schooling, their job opportunities, getting to healthcare, getting to grocery stores, you name it.
Oh,
Thank
one
you.
more
Yeah.
thing is the rail trail conversions are great, but I was upstate, and one of them was up in the Antarctic was paved, and it was fabulous because you had bikes going down it, you have people walking to work, you're rollerblading, so much movement along them. It was pure pedestrian. It was a pure pedestrian highway, right? So if we are talking about converting all these rail trails, all these railways into trails, I think we'd get a lot more use out of them if they were paved, which is going to cost money.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for adding that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Would love to hear from others. What needs do our communities have? Like, what are our community's needs? In the chat, Ramsey added that the current roads need repair endowments. Route 17 is currently woefully undermaintained, which is true. One of our colleagues at Mountainkeeper got a flat tire driving on Route 17. And, no one should be going through that, especially if we've got 1.4 billion to fix our roads. What else have we got from folks? What other needs are there in our communities? Feel free to put something in the chat, or you can raise a virtual or on-camera hand. I'll give it just a second of, buffering and filling the airwaves before I bring us back into the slide presentation, but want to give folks a chance to weigh in.
Well, I also think that we need connection to some major employers with better transit. Like in Rock Hill, we have Center for Discovery, which is apparently Sullivan County's biggest employer. Learn that in the comprehensive plan. And we have the Rock Hill, we have a Crystal Run Healthcare, is another big employer. So if we want to develop more of these areas where we have big employers, they need service.
Totally agree. Yeah. And as we start to do our outreach, folks, I want to remind us that if you are working for these large employers, if these are your friends, if you have these connections, we want to make sure that they're involved in this vision too, right? They're a part of it. All of our major employers in the region are a part of creating better transportation for our communities. And in the chat, I've also seen commuter lots with high-speed service and commuter lots with high-speed service, solar canopies, vehicle-to-grid charging and storage, and a bookstore cafe would be nice. Yeah, I appreciate all this visioning, folks. Doing a last call here for folks to come off mute and share about community needs or, kind of related projects, reports, etc. Okay. In that case, I'm going to reshare my screen, and we will jump back in. So, thank you everyone for adding to this kind of community feedback section. Moving on, we've kind of gone through, a recap of the Route 17 project, what's at stake, what are the opportunities. We've looked at the ReThink Route 17's Alliance, the ReThink Route 17 Alliance's report, Invest in Our Communities, Not a Wider Highway, talked about our vision for the region, what's possible. Now we want to kind of switch over to how to take action. So I am going to hand it over to my colleague, Corinne.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, folks. Good to see everyone. So Taylor mentioned before, one of the key takeaways for this conversation today is that it is possible to use the money that is currently allocated for this highway expansion project to use that money for other things. So that's one takeaway we really want folks on this call to leave with, is that it is possible to change course. The other takeaway I want to really stress here is that this is not a done deal. I think there are probably a lot of folks in the region who are operating with the understanding that this project is a done deal and guaranteed to move forward. But that's not the case yet. And so, as Taylor mentioned, we're definitely the underdog in this fight. We have an uphill battle, but it is possible to change course. And I think with the right people power and imagination, we can make that happen. So the most important kind of decision maker in this process is Governor Kathy Hochul. And so as we're thinking about how we're taking action and how we're structuring our advocacy, we're keeping in mind that Governor Hochul could make a decision to shift in a different direction with this project, could decide we're going to look at a different alternative, use this money for other community needs. But we need to put pressure to make that happen. And so part of our goal with this conversation today is to really recognize that even amongst the group of folks on this call, we have a lot of great representation in different communities around the region. And so our ask and our strategy is to really, for each of us, I'm based in Ellenville, so I'm at one tail end of the project, but I know from the chat that there are folks in different parts of the corridor in different geographies. If each of us is to have conversations with our neighbors, with our elected officials, with folks in our communities, we can start to spread the word about this project, first of all, that it's at stake, and the vision that we have for a different kind of investment in our future. Conversations with our local elected officials are really important. And if anyone on the call is a local elected official and wants to talk further about the opportunities that we're describing here, it's really important that At the state level, Governor Hochul and NYSDOT, New York State Department of Transportation, hear from local communities that we have other needs. We have different ways that we'd like to see this money spent. So Catskill Mountainkeeper has put together a number of resources for us to take action. We have a petition. We have templates for you to take to your local elected officials to pass resolutions of opposition to the highway expansion and resolutions of support for an alternate vision. And we have resources for sharing more information about the project and about this report that Taylor has walked us through with your neighbors and with your friends. So we're going to spend some time together taking action, but I really want to stress for this conversation, it's important that we make our voices heard. It's important that we talk with folks in our communities who are connected to really stress that there's a different path forward here. There's a different future where we're investing in our communities in the Catskill and Hudson Valley region. Taylor, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Karen. I really appreciate that. Yeah, this is our future that we're talking about. And it's in our hands, right? We've got to start taking action now, and we really need to ramp up quickly, right? We've got to start making the connections. So right now, we are going to turn it over and actually take some actions. As Corinne mentioned, we have a few different ways for folks to get involved. So what I'm going to do right now, if folks are on their laptop and you have a phone handy, you will see a couple of different QR codes that you're able to scan to take these actions. I will also be putting links in the chat. So we really want to encourage folks to take action right now on this campaign so that way we can make our voices heard. Up first, we are, as Corinne mentioned, we've got a petition going around. And this is to rethink Route 17. So the key target of this petition is Governor Hochul and the Department of Transportation. We're asking them to stop all plans for expansion, fix existing roads first, and develop a regional transportation plan that is actually aligned with our community needs and priorities. So we are going to give folks a minute or two to sign this petition, and then maybe share it to a friend. And as we do that, I am going to play a little bit of music for us. So thank you for taking action. And when you do, please, pop some emojis in the chat so I know that we can move on to the next one. Folks, another minute or so. We'd love to see some emojis in the chat, or if this is done once we sign this petition. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, sorry. This is kind of our song for what we don't want to happen. But I figured maybe energizing. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks, Bryce. Awesome. Starting to see some folks signing this petition. Thank you, Peter. Road to Nowhere is a great suggestion. I'm adding that to the list. Great, folks. I'm going to turn us over to our next action. Email key legislators along the corridor. So very similar content to the petition, except this one is directed at our key legislators that are directly along the project building, assembly members and senators. And I will just refresh so that way folks see that link. Email key legislators.
All right. We'd love to see as folks have finished emailing our legislators. Feel free to react. Feel free to write done again. Want to make sure we're getting these emails out to our legislators. And I'll just give it a minute before I switch over to our last action. Woo! Thanks, Bryce. All right, giving folks a second to finish up sending these emails. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Daniel. All right. Last but not least, we are
right. And so before we close out, really want to say thank you again, everybody, for taking action. Oh, yes, if you've already taken action, thank you. You know, you can take action just once. And if you're looking for other ways to get involved, once we've all sent our emails, we can think of, you know, kind of the next step in the campaign, and how to get in front of our legislators again. So thank you, Anne, for pointing that out. Before we close out, we want to say thank you. You know, it's going to take all of us to speak up and make our voices heard. It's going to take all of us if we want to stop this boondoggle in its tracks. We don't want to get paved over. We want to see real investments in our communities. We do not want a wider highway. My contact, I'm Taylor Jaffe. You can reach me at taylor@catskillmountainkeeper.org. You can also find us at www.rethinkroute17.org. So we've got a few ways for folks to keep in touch. Thanks for joining our mailing list. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to stop sharing screen, and we certainly, if folks have questions, would love to answer those. So I will pause there and see if folks have other things that they want to share, or other questions. Awesome. Yeah, Damon, I see you came off mute. Jump in.
Yeah, is it okay if I just talk really quickly about the report that we worked on with y'all?
And I see that you might be talking, but I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh,
Oh, no.
yes, I can. Sorry. That was just
Oh,
me.
you can? Cool. Okay, I just wanted to share it really quickly about the DOT report that we worked on with y'all. Hi, everyone. My name is Damon. I'm an attorney with New York Lawyers for the Public Interests. We're a legal nonprofit organizing on EJ, DJ, and HJ issues. We've been supporting partners like Route 17 Alliance, leading their important work to stop harmful highway infrastructure. We're really proud to see their launching their visioning report. It's really, you guys did an amazing job. And we similarly just released a report called Still Flouting the Law, which shows that the Department of Transportation has failed to implement New York's climate law, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which requires dramatic emissions reductions and directs agencies to ensure their decisions advance climate and equity goals. And visions like the alliances are what compliance looks like, despite the fact that the state DOT is simply not abiding by that. Route 17 is an example of a large problem that's a pattern playing out statewide. Communities are offering practical alternatives like investments in safer roads and sidewalks and bus routes, while the state keeps defaulting to projects that undercut the Climate Act. We really need DOT to adapt clear, enforceable guidance to align projects with the Climate Act's climate and equity mandates. So we're going to keep pushing just to hopefully see if we can get some internal conversations going with our partners to see that they do so. So if you'd like to learn more or you're in conversation with DOT for any of their ongoing projects, please let us know. NILPI would be glad to join to help keep the pressure on as we try to get them to start actually abiding by the law that was implemented over 5 years ago. Thanks again for everything. Taylor did an amazing job today.
Thanks, Damon. Appreciate that. And if you have a link that you can add to the chat for folks to find that report or to reach out to you, that would be super helpful. And we can share that in our follow-up. Yeah, this is super important, right? This project is not happening in isolation. This is part of a broader problem with our system, right? We have really racist and, stuck in the past highway planning. And it's time that we have highway planning, transportation planning that actually works for our communities. So Route 17 and the ReThink Route 17 Alliance were just one part of a broader puzzle. So thank you, Damon, for sharing that. We'll make sure to get those resources out. Any other community plugs? Any other questions? Yeah, Jessica.
Taylor, could you just tell everyone list all the illustrious and experienced groups that worked on this plan? I don't think everyone's aware.
I would love to do that. So this publication that I've got right here in my hands is brought to you by the ReThink Route 17 Alliance, and specifically sign on by the Catskill Area Association, the Catskill Center, Catskill Mountainkeeper, Chestertown Supervisor Brandon Holridge, who sends his apologies that he couldn't join us tonight, Earth Justice, For the Many, Lake Communities Alliance, the Mamakating Environmental Education Center, NAACP Ellenville, Natural Resources Defense Council, New Voters Movement, New York EnvironCom, New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, New York State Bicycle Coalition, Orange Environment, Parks and Trails New York, Regional Plan Association, Riders of Ulster Transit Alliance, RM Farm Real Estate, Safe Pass Ulster, Sierra Club, Sustainable Hudson Valley, Third Act Upstate New York, and Tri-State Transportation Campaign. So we've got a really long list of folks who support this alternate vision. And we've still got a ways to go. We want to keep building momentum. So really thank you so much to everyone who has gotten this report to where it is. Thank you also especially to RF Khan for actually putting the nuts and bolts together. I'm pretty sure I saw you on our participant list. And, you know, we've gotten this far and we want to get this thing across the finish line. So thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this community effort.
And just one more quick thing. All the
Of course.
legislators, they know about this already. So if anybody writes to them, it's not coming out of the blue. We've prepped and primed them. So
Absolutely. Yes. Our legislators should have an inkling that this is going on. We want to get them informed. We want them to know what is at stake and what are the opportunities. So we really hope folks will join us in supporting this alternate vision and calling for investments that are in our communities, not a wider highway. Yeah, exactly, David. They need to hear it over and over and over. There can't be too many of us who say this. And we can't say it enough times. Until highway expansion is entirely off the table, and until we are seeing some local investments, we can't say it enough. Keeping it open for questions and comments. One point I want to lift up from the chat, Jackie asked if a recording and QR codes will be available to share. Yes, we will be sharing the recording and all of these ways to take action with everyone who registered. And that will go to whichever email you registered with. So please just forward that right along to everyone in your own list, especially people that you think would be interested. Wonderful. Any other questions or comments from folks while we are still here today? I'm doing a quick scan and I'm not seeing any hands raised. So I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. And also thank you all for joining us tonight.